Welcome to the Masterminds podcast channel, brought to you by DonorSearch, a leader in prospect research tools and analytics. And your host, one of America's top philanthropic experts and fundraising consultants, Jay Frost.
Erica Waasdorp is the author of Monthly Giving, The Sleeping Giant, and a self-described philanthropyholic, a native of the Netherlands who speaks 4 languages and has over 20 years experience in direct marketing for both nonprofit and for-profit organizations around the world. She has guided clients in raising many millions of dollars, acquiring and retaining thousands of their donors and members, as well as starting and building sustainer programs. Erica is a certified master trainer and a popular speaker at conferences locally, nationally, and around the world. We caught up with her at her home in Massachusetts. Welcome to the program, Erica. It's great to have you.
Welcome. I'm excited.
Well, of course, I talked a little bit about your background in that brief bio, but how would you describe yourself?
Wow. I would say I typically say like I'm a philanthropyholic. So
Mhm.
I love fundraising. I love being a fundraiser, and it's something I rolled into almost 27 years ago now. I was in publishing before, but I absolutely love it. And the reason is because you work with nice people, people who are passionate about the causes they work for, and you can make a difference. So, and it's a great way to make a difference. Um, in many ways as a fundraiser, as a fundraising consultant.
Right. Now, you're a native of the Netherlands and you
hmm
speak 4 languages,
hmm
but you're a fundraising consultant in the US today, and you continue
Yes.
to work globally. But tell us a little bit about that journey and what brought you from there to here.
Well, I mean, I probably moved here like as a lot of foreigners who immigrated into the U.S. I married an American, and it was not always an easy journey because growing up in a very small country that I don't know if you've ever been there, but I mean the Netherlands is like it's 3 hours from top to bottom and it's 2 hours from left to right basically, so it's a very small country. And so in everything is smaller because of it. So and it's a very busy country as well. And it's also has some different it has 22 political parties, just to give you an idea. So 17 million people who can vote for 22 different political parties. And so a lot of things are a little bit different, but it's just a great country. But because it's so small, people have always had to learn other languages and trade with other countries. So it's a very international country, and I've always worked in international companies because of it. So as a young person growing up, you had to learn English. Like Dutch is obviously the first language, but then you learn English. And then what I grew up near the German and Belgian border, so I grew up basically understanding German just because of watching TV and being in the area. So and then I later learned French, and I actually even learned Spanish as well. So because you had to nobody speaks Dutch, so you have to learn other languages. So coming to this country was, it felt like home pretty quickly because I'd spoken English pretty much all my life. So it was not a that part was not a big deal. So
But a big transition, I'm sure, in terms of the work environment. I can
mhm,
think about a couple things right away. You say small country, but of course a country with a great deal of history. And for those who don't know, it's also a place that's at least understood to be extraordinarily philanthropic,
mhm,
but perhaps in different ways. Can you
yeah.
talk about maybe some of those similarities and differences, and maybe how they inform your work?
Yeah, so in the Netherlands, because it's so small and people live pretty close, like lots of like apartment buildings and row houses and what have you. So, for example, collections, people going door to door asking, where the collection, um, you know, uh, bucket, if you will, was very, very common. And direct mail, I mean, the postal service is phenomenal.
Mm.
And I mean, you literally mail a letter today, and the person at the other end of the country gets it tomorrow. So it's really like 24-hour turnaround. So that really has helped with a lot of philanthropy, direct mail as well. And then the banking system is has always been, very, I would say, probably forward thinking. Like, to pay a bill, you don't mail your payment to the company you owe money to, you mail it to the bank, and the bank scans it and then just passes on to the company a file that tells you that I've paid my bill.
Oh,
And actually, like the mailing to the bank, that was free. So you could just, put all your payment forms in one envelope for, I don't know how many bills you had to pay, and it just goes to the bank. They scan it in, and every company that you owe money gets, uh, you know, an overview that you have paid your bill. So none of that, like having to do data entry and caging and all of that. The bank does all of that for you. So I remember when I had came to this country and somebody told me that there was this big building, and this was just for my bank, that where 1,700 people were sorting checks every day. I was like, what? So that was definitely a cultural difference. But yeah, I mean, and because you could pay, make these payments very easily. I mean, the bank was also there again. Like philanthropic organizations didn't have to pay anybody doing the data entry because the bank was already doing that for them.
wow. What a
So
difference.
yeah,
And we,
it's very different.
you
And
said
then I
we,
think the other thing is, like, bank accounts were much more prevalent.
mhm,
I mean, when I got my first credit card, because I was traveling, I got a credit card. I mean, that credit card had to be paid off every month.
mhm.
It was really not a credit card. You just, you just had to pay. There was no other option. You had to pay it off every month. So that has changed a little bit, but it's still very similar. So people are just much more comfortable, like, paying, through their bank. So and every company would literally have their bank account information on their letterhead, so you could pay.
As you talk about this,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the relationship that we have with our customers, or in the case of all of our, our charitable sector, with our donors.
Hmm.
And on the one hand, we have this massive expense and time and money to, as you said, receive gifts and
Hmm.
correspond with people. But
Yeah.
that also is an opportunity to engage with them in different ways. I wonder if if there's if that's an opportunity that we've been successful in exploring here in terms of our philanthropy, or if that's something we can streamline and it definitely
Hmm.
relates to monthly giving. So,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts about how we can learn from the experience, not just in the Netherlands, of course, but globally, in terms of making sure that what we do works more effectively, but we also maintain the relationships we have with people who are giving to us?
Yeah, I mean, I think that well, two things come to mind. Is, like, I think I mean, the fact is that if you have to manually enter a gift
Mhm.
into a donor base, right, which is what typically happens here, right? I mean, and some bigger organizations have scanners, and they scan it in, and files are uploaded and stuff like that. So that's a little bit more advanced, but that's more expensive, right? So most smaller organizations just simply can't afford that, so they still have manual thing. I mean, the relationship building is, as long as you know who made the gift and what it was for, you can build that relationship because you actually have more time to do it, right? Because all you just getting you could literally get a list every day of, hey, who are the 10 highest donors yesterday, or things like that. So there's still ways around that you get reports and all that. So I don't know. I guess it's just like it's definitely a cultural difference. So, I worked for when I moved to this country, I started working for an international organization,
Mhm.
and they were raising funds in 6 countries at the time. And I was able to, basically use my experience working with the Dutch, banking systems, and because I spoke German, I could help with the German system, and and it was, which again was very very similar to the Dutch system because they were also using these payment forms and also scanning and literally just uploading files. So I think that the building of the relationships um, is easier if you don't have to spend a lot of time, like, getting to the point where you can, run in selection from your database and do a mail merge and send out personal letters and what have you. Um, so I think that part is it's kind of a bottleneck, and I hear that a lot. Like, especially now it's January and people are like, "Oh well, how did your appeals do? And how many monthly donors did you get?" And they're like, "Well, I'm still like entering them in," and so it's like, so you see, I mean, you only have like 24 hours a day, right? So you can't do certain things if you have to do other things that could possibly be automated, but it's
True.
it's getting there. So monthly giving is like that's the beauty of it. It's like because you're getting the money in automatically,
Mhm.
it's one less thing that you have to manually enter typically. So and again, it's like that ongoing revenue that you can count on, that just keeps coming in no matter what happens. I mean, if we have a disaster, right? And and there's disasters, whether it's a fire or a flood or an earthquake or something. There's lots of disasters, and if that means that you can't go out of the mail, or it means that you can't, or your internet's shut down for whatever reason, so then you can't get any money. But
Right.
monthly gifts keep coming in.
And you made that case so well in the flash class
Hmm.
that you did, talking about I think you said that the retention rate was double for
Yes. Yeah.
donors,
Yep.
and of course a lot more revenue. There's also this whole personal dimension to that, where people, I'm sure, feel invested in a different way
Hmm.
because they're giving
Yeah.
monthly. But
Yeah.
how does one sustain that so that people don't feel uh, like they're just, the money's going out every month, but rather that they are really, that there's a relationship that they develop, that they are truly partners.
Yeah, and I think this is and again for a while, when organizations first started, with monthly giving, people would say, "Oh, once they're a monthly donor, you can't communicate with them," and that was wrong,
Right.
right? So, and that's what happened. Like sometimes people say, "Well, yeah, I just brought in these monthly donors, and now I don't have to do anything." And now, and again, we see the statistics, right? And we see the feedback we get from monthly donors. It's like once somebody gives monthly, they give monthly because they care about the organization. They want to support the organization. And giving monthly is just something that's easy on their budget. But
Mm.
that's really the third reason. The first reason is they want to give. They want to support the organization, right? So giving them feedback, telling them stories, making it as personal as you can is still crucial, right? So still building a relationship, keeping them up to date on what's happening, that's the key. And the more personal you can make that, the better off you are.
Mhm.
So I think, organizations a lot of times don't do themselves any favors by sometimes be very siloed, other times be very worried that they can't repurpose things, right? And I hear that all the time. Oh, and I said, well, hey, do you have a thank you video? Oh yeah, we did one like 3 months ago. Okay, so well, where is it? And well, yeah, we sent it out by email one time. Okay. Well, I said, well, why can't you use that to say welcome to a new monthly donor? Or why can't you put it in an email or in an e-news? Or well, yeah, well, but didn't they already see it? Yeah, some people may have seen it, but that's 3 months ago. So nobody's going to tell you, oh, you're bad because you sent me the same video that I've already seen. Most
Mhm.
people wouldn't. wouldn't think about that. They probably forgot, right? So people think that they have to constantly come up with new stuff, right? And I think if you kind of look at what's being developed within your organization, what's already there. Maybe you have a major gift department. Maybe you have somebody that does a really great job stewarding donors in another area somewhere.
Mhm.
Whether it's like, oh, maybe they're doing something special as a follow up to an event. Well, you can steal that. You can use it. It's okay, right? So you don't have to come up with the brand new idea all the time because that's just impossible, right? So I think if people were a little bit more like, oh, hey, yeah, let me look back at what I haven't used in a while, and maybe use that again, you'll be much better off, right?
Well,
And just
this,
because we forgot it or we already saw it doesn't mean the donor remembers it, right? So
that's right. I mean,
yeah,
there are a lot of things that we say that we need to say again, or
yeah,
maybe the reason why they responded is because they, what we talked about resonated for them. So
yeah,
why not talk about the thing that was meaningful?
right.
Um, but I do want to ask you if you've seen this work particularly well in a case or two. I mean, what has do you see an example of an organization you've worked with or you've seen from afar where they have taken this to a new level, where they're really building those relationships and they've made something that not only brings all that revenue, but
Mhm.
makes people really feel like they're the partners with the organization?
Yeah, I mean, I gave an example of an animal welfare charity, in the webinar that it's a small animal charity. They have 2,500 donors. They have like I think right now they're about 350 monthly donors, and they look at they're volunteer run, right? So it's
Mhm.
not a huge organization, but the person who's running it is a financial planner. He gets it. He
Right.
sees how powerful this monthly donor stuff is. So, and he's like, and he always calls me up and say, "Hey, Erica, guess what we just did?" Right. So he tells me what they've just developed or whatever, and then or they says, "Well, what do you think about this?" Right. And they they're always trying to engage their they call them BFFs. They're always trying to engage their monthly donors. They have an event and they put a special like marker on the name tags,
Hmm.
right? And then they have a special like table for the monthly donors, right? So when they come to an event, they do that. And they don't have a lot of events, but they have a couple of these low key, low ticket events where they can recognize them, right?
Right.
So those are a couple of things that they do, and then they handwrite a personal note on their tax letter in January.
Hmm.
I mean, they call and say, "Wow, I just want to say thank you," and be on the lookout because your calendar is coming soon. So kind of like tying that. Again, they don't mail a lot. They don't, so they don't do a lot, but everything that they do is they always have the monthly donors in mind. So I think that's an example of an organization that I think has done a really good job with their stewarding piece. And again, they keep them. And and if for some reason the credit card expires, well, they immediately send a very personal email and they call, right? They keep it being very personal, right? So it's not like, oh, in your face, like you're bad, like you're like your credit card lapsed. No, no, no. It's like, hey, I just want to, remind you. Well, and this happens to me all the time myself, So and just kind of like make the donor feel at ease, like, oh, this was not a bad thing that happened, but hey, here we can fix it, So that's one thing. And I think the other part is like there's a couple of organizations that I think do a really good job bringing new monthly donors in by again like using video, using the personal touch, trying to build that relationship as a I want to invite you, like one organization I saw, they did a little tour of their facility and like just one of those virtual tours, right? And then at the end of it's like, would you like to become a an ambassador, is what the name of their monthly donor program is. So and that video works really well, and it then sits on a reply, a donation form, if you will. I mean, this Best Friends Animals, they do a great job. Like, watch the animals play, and you play, and it's one of those funny cat and dog videos, and people love it. And hey, they go watch it, and oh, by the way, why don't you become a monthly donor? As part of that. So it's almost like built in, very playful. Almost, it looks like an afterthought. It's not, but it looks like an afterthought, but it works.
You've worked with a number of animal organizations, haven't you?
Yeah,
You were at International Fund for Animal Welfare, I think.
yeah,
And
yeah.
what makes those organizations so unique in kind of the ecosystem of charity? What do you think makes it attracts donors to them? What attracts you to these organizations?
Well, I mean, I'm a cat person, so we have a cat, and you know, animal care. I mean, animal charities is like, people who support animal charities. They get a lot of love back. It's that unconditional love from the animals that they care about, and animals can't speak. So we have to be their voice, right? So so I think that's what attracts a lot of animal donors, to make a difference to a cat or dog or a parrot, or or a rabbit, whatever it is that they care about, because they can't speak for themselves, so we have to do it for them. And I think that's the biggest reason why puppies and kittens, and like the virtually everybody loves animals. So and they're actually almost more successful than children's charities, right? Because everybody loves animals, and a lot of people have animals. So again, it's just close to their heart, if you will.
Right.
So I think
Right.
that's why, I mean, like, Tom Ahern always says, well, everybody should have a puppy in their direct mail pieces, right? But I've actually tested it. Like, I was working for a homeless organization, and one of their homeless folks. So, I mean, they got a chance to live in this community home, and he had a dog, and we use a dog image, and it worked better than the one without the dog image. So again, it was just one more thing, like, oh, I'm supporting this person and this dog. So it was a double whammy, if you will.
Sure.
Yeah.
As you look at all the things you've been doing over these years and seeing how organizations are taking some of these things that you've learned and applied and applying them in their own context and making them work, are you seeing any major change? I mean, we've seen so much in terms of social media, including things like putting those pictures of animals or
Yeah.
those cat videos.
Yeah.
What do you imagine coming soon in terms of what we do to make sure people really feel like they're investing in the things that matter to them? What are the not just the tools and techniques we use, but what's working for charity as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's an interesting question. I think video still has a way to go. I think it's not used at all to the extent it could be used. But I think the other piece of it is, a lot of organizations think that donors are only on social media or are only on email, and they forget that that's not the case. So I kind of almost think like we need to go back to basics.
Mm,
And and I think, I mean, again, I was just going through my mail, and there's a wonderful thank you card, right? And it's like, wow, I mean, a thank you card. Actually, I got two thank you cards in the mail, one for my husband, one for me. So it's like, wow, yeah. I mean, it's like the first thing you open, and you're going to hold on to it. And it's like somebody took the time to write a thank you card,
mm,
right? And it's that personal touch. It's like, I'm not a number. I'm special, right? And I think that's what what we can't lose.
Mhm.
We have to be careful not to lose that. And I mean, and with this social media, with the phones, I mean, again, you probably go to restaurants just as much as I do, and you see couples that are just looking at their phone. They're not talking,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, well, we're still human beings, right? We need to talk to each other. We need to communicate with each other. We need to make each other feel good, right? And kind of give each other mini hugs at times, right? So, and that's kind of, and there's a couple of different ways that you can do that as a fundraiser.
Mhm.
And I think we have to be careful not to lose that, because we're human beings, right? And we're not computers, we're not phones. We want to hear from people, we want to communicate, we want to talk to people, and have that personal connection. And I mean, you do a lot of major gifts. Well, major gifts, it's all about relationships.
Mhm.
It's once you have those relationships, it's not hard to ask for money, because you kind of know what's coming, right? So I think that's what we have to remember, and go back to that and saying, okay, well, maybe, what did your grandma used to write you, or what did you used to have to write to grandma when you got your Christmas gift? You sent a thank you card, right? Well, that's what donors like that too, because they don't get a lot of them.
Yeah.
So you're standing out even more if you do it. I mean,
Right.
thank you calls, virtually nobody does thank you calls anymore. But if you get a call, it's like, wow, that person took the time to look at my phone number and call me because I made a $5 a month gift.
Mhm.
It's very powerful. So I think that's what, I think we should go back to that. And especially as younger fundraisers are coming behind us, they need to want to understand and learn the old way of recognizing people, I think. um that's just my personal opinion. So in terms of what's new, I mean, I don't know, I think it's just going back to basics first, and then again, looking at what you can do within your organization without going crazy and without like chasing the next big. It's like it's all about small things. In what would the donor want, what is a donor like, and how can you build a relationship? And whether it's a monthly donor or a major donor, I mean, that doesn't really matter. So it's like a donor is a donor, and in some cases, for them, $5 a month may be a really big deal, but they're doing it.
Thank you so much, Erica. This
Yeah.
is really a wonderful conversation and a great way to kind of refocus on the people who are making everything we do possible. Thank you.